Raymond Sullivan had always calculated the odds. It was what kept him alive during 15 years as a federal intelligence operative before he built his security consulting firm. Even now, at 45, he maintained the same disciplined routine, the same situational awareness that had become second nature. So when he dropped his wife, Natalie, at the airport that morning for her consulting conference in Boston, something felt off. "Text me when you land," he told her, studying her eyes for the micro-expressions that might betray her. "I always do," she'd replied with that practiced smile, the one that had started appearing 3 months ago. Now, pulling into his driveway with his 17-year-old son, Blake, beside him, Raymond registered the unmarked police cruiser with tinted windows parked across the street. Not highway patrol. Not local sheriff. Federal issue. "Something wrong, Dad?" Blake asked, noticing his father's grip tightening on the steering wheel. Before Raymond could answer, a tall man in a dark suit approached their car, badge already extended. "Mr. Sullivan, Agent Hoffman, FBI. I'm going to need you and your son to remain in your vehicle." Raymond sized up the agent, former military by his posture, right-handed weapon holder, experienced enough to maintain proper distance. "What's this about, Agent Hoffman?" "Sir, we have reason to believe there's an intruder in your home. We've secured the perimeter, but I need you both to stay back." "Dad," Blake whispered, grabbing his sleeve so tightly his knuckles whitened. "I think I might know what this is about." Raymond turned to his son, studying the sudden fear in his eyes. "What do you mean?" he asked, voice dropping to match Blake's whisper. "Mom's been acting weird. I found something in her study last week. Files with names, schedules. Your name was there too. With a date. Today's date." Raymond felt a cold clarity wash over him as pieces started clicking into place. He leaned past his son and looked through the side window toward their house. That's when he saw him, standing in the living room window, watching. Adrian Kozlov, the man who, 12 years ago, Raymond had personally ensured would spend his life in a black site prison for selling classified intelligence that got 3 agents killed. "Dad," Blake's voice trembled. "Who was that?" Raymond's expression hardened to granite. "Someone who should never have been released." He turned to his son. "What else did you see in those files?" Blake swallowed. "Photos of us, our routines, and a woman I'd never seen before. Dark hair, scar on her neck. The file called her Viper." Raymond went completely still. Viper, the assassin whose identity he'd protected because she'd once saved his life. A debt he'd just realized had been repaid in betrayal. "Sir," Agent Hoffman insisted, "I need you to stay in your vehicle while Your team is walking into a trap," Raymond said flatly. "There are likely 3 more hostiles inside that you don't know about. And my wife isn't in Boston." The agent's expression shifted. "How could you possibly?" "Because," Raymond said, pulling out his phone and showing a GPS tracking screen, "she's currently 50 miles north of here at a private airstrip. And if I'm right, she's in danger too, though not the kind she thinks." As Agent Hoffman radioed his team, Raymond turned to his son. "Blake, I need you to tell me everything you saw. And then I need you to stay with the agents while I make a call." "Dad, what's happening? What does this have to do with Mom?" Raymond's eyes were cold as he watched Kozlov disappear from the window. "Your mother has been playing a very dangerous game. And she doesn't realize she's not the one making the rules." 3 hours later, Raymond sat in an FBI field office while Blake slept on a couch nearby. He watched through the one-way glass as agents questioned Adrian Kozlov, the man who should have spent his life in prison. Assistant Director Phelps entered, looking grim. "Sullivan, we found your wife at the airstrip. She's being brought in now." "Was she alone?" Raymond asked, his voice betraying nothing. "No, she was with a man. French passport identifies him as Philippe Devereux. Interpol has flags on him. Suspected arms dealer, money launderer." Raymond nodded slowly. "And the woman? Dark hair, scar on her neck." Phelps's eyebrows rose. You know about Viper? She wasn't there, but we found her kit in a shed nearby. Sniper rifle, specialized ammunition. She wasn't there to protect Natalie, Raymond said flatly. She was there to eliminate her after the transfer. What transfer? Raymond's mind raced through years of classified operations, connections, and betrayals. Did you search my home office? Not yet. We've been focused on the false bottom in my desk, Raymond interrupted. Combination 27 to 1439. There's a hard drive with everything you need. Phelps looked at him with new respect. You knew. All this time. I suspected 3 months ago when Natalie's behavior changed. Confirmed it 6 weeks ago. I've been gathering evidence since. Why didn't you come to us sooner? Raymond's eyes were cold. Because I needed to know how deep it went. Who was involved? Who was pulling Natalie's strings? He glanced at his sleeping son. And because I needed to make contingency plans for my children. Your daughter is at her rowing competition in Philadelphia with my sister. She's safe. Phelps sat down across from Raymond. Kozlov claims he was invited to your house by your wife. Says they've been working on a project together. Raymond's laugh was humorless. A project. That's what they're calling high treason now. Sullivan, I need to know what we're dealing with. If your wife is involved in the Gorgon Protocol, Raymond said quietly, that's what this is about. Phelps went pale. That operation was burned 5 years ago. No, Raymond corrected. You were told it was burned. In reality, it went dark, deeper than anything on record. Through the glass, Raymond watched as Kozlov's confident facade began to crack under questioning. The man kept glancing at the mirror, as if he could see Raymond watching. My wife doesn't know what she's involved in, Raymond continued. She thinks this is about money. Accessing my old accounts, my connections. Kozlov recruited her 8 months ago. Romantic attachment, then manipulation. You have proof. Raymond pulled out his phone, opened an encrypted app, and slid it across the table. Every conversation, every meeting, every transfer. Phelps stared at him. You bugged your own wife. I bugged a potential security breach in my home, Raymond corrected coldly. When you've lost as many colleagues as I have to betrayal, you learn to watch everyone. Even those closest to you. The door opened, and an agent stepped in. Sir, Mrs. Sullivan has arrived. Raymond stood. I want to observe her interview. Sullivan, protocol says. She won't tell you anything if she thinks I don't know. You need to let her believe I'm still in the dark. Phelps considered this, then nodded. Fine, but no contact. As they walked down the hall, Raymond spotted Blake stirring on the couch. The boy's eyes found his father's, full of confusion and hurt. What happens now, Dad? Raymond took a moment before answering. Now we find out exactly how far your mother was willing to go. The truth, which Raymond kept to himself, was darker. He already knew the answer, and he'd already decided what he would do about it. Raymond watched through the one-way glass as Natalie Sullivan fidgeted in the sterile interview room. Gone was the confident, charming woman who'd shared his bed for 19 years. In her place sat a stranger, eyes darting around the room, manicured nails tapping anxiously on the metal table. She's been asking to speak with you, Agent Torres said, joining Raymond and Phelps in the observation room. Claims there's been a misunderstanding. Raymond's face remained expressionless. What about her French friend? Devereaux's not talking. His lawyer's already on the way from D.C. He doesn't need a lawyer, Raymond said coldly. He needs a priest. Phelps gave Raymond a sharp look. We're doing this by the book, Sullivan. Of course, Raymond replied, though his mind was already calculating 3 different ways this would end, none of which involved courtrooms or due process. The door to the interview room opened, and Agent Torres entered to sit across from Natalie. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm Agent Torres. I'd like to ask you some questions about Adrian Kozlov and Philip Devereaux. Natalie straightened, summoning the poise that had made her so effective at charity galas and corporate functions. This is all a misunderstanding. Mr. Kozlov is a business associate helping me plan a surprise for Raymond's birthday. And Philip is an old friend ho. We found $3 million in bearer bonds and Devereaux's briefcase. Torres interrupted, along with a flash drive containing classified intelligence assessments with your husband's digital signature. Natalie's composure faltered. I don't know anything about that. We also found this. Torres continued, sliding a photo across the table. It showed Natalie and Devereaux in an intimate embrace outside a hotel room. Natalie's face flushed. My personal life is not a crime. No, but espionage is. Torres placed another document on the table. This is a warrant for your electronic devices. We've already accessed your cloud accounts. Would you like to explain the encrypted communications with known intelligence operatives from 3 foreign governments? Behind the glass, Raymond felt a cold satisfaction as he watched Natalie's carefully constructed world begin to crumble. I want to speak to my husband, she demanded. Mrs. Sullivan, you're in serious trouble. We've found evidence that you've been accessing your husband's secure files for months. Files related to operations that cost people their lives. For the first time, fear flickered across Natalie's face. You don't understand. They have leverage. They threatened our children. Raymond's fists clenched at the mention of their children. Beside him, Phelps shifted uncomfortably. She's lying, Raymond said quietly. Blake confirmed she's been meeting these people voluntarily for months. No signs of coercion. The door to the observation room opened, and an agent entered with a tablet. Sir, we finished the preliminary search of the Sullivan residence. You need to see this. Phelps took the tablet, his expression growing grimmer as he scrolled through the images. Without a word, he handed it to Raymond. On the screen were photos of his home office, the hidden safe open and empty. But what froze his blood was the image of his daughter's bedroom. On her bed lay 3 roses and a typed note. She looks just like her mother. Where's Blake? Raymond demanded, already moving toward the door. Still in the waiting area but Raymond was already running down the hall. He burst into the waiting area to find Blake gone, his jacket still draped over the chair. On the seat lay a folded paper with a single word written on it. Leverage. Raymond's face transformed, all pretense of cooperation vanishing. He turned to find Phelps behind him. They have my children, he said, his voice deadly calm. Now you have a choice. You can try to handle this your way with your rules and your procedures, or you can let me do what I've been trained to do. Phelps studied him. What exactly are you proposing? I'm not proposing anything, Raymond replied. I'm telling you I'm going to get my children back. And then I'm going to dismantle the people responsible. All of them, piece by piece. His gaze drifted to the interview room, where Natalie still sat. Starting with her. Phelps looked conflicted. Sullivan, I can't authorize. I don't need your authorization, Raymond cut him off. I need you to stay out of my way for 24 hours. And if I don't, Raymond's eyes were cold. Then you'll have 3 hostage situations instead of 2. As if on cue, Raymond's phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. He looked down to see a video thumbnail showing Blake and Mia, bound but apparently unharmed. The message read, "The children for the drive. You know which one. Midnight. The old foundry. Come alone, or they die first." Raymond showed the message to Phelps, then deleted it and removed the SIM card, crushing it under his heel. 24 hours, he repeated. Phelps held his gaze, then nodded almost imperceptibly. I never had this conversation with you, and I never saw that message. Raymond turned to leave, but Phelps caught his arm. Sullivan, the woman in there, she's still your wife, the mother of your children. Raymond's expression could have frozen hell itself. No, he said quietly. She stopped being that the moment she put them in danger. As he walked away, Raymond's mind was already assembling the pieces of what would become his most devastating operation yet. One with no official sanction, no oversight, and no mercy. Raymond Sullivan had spent most of his adult life hiding the monster inside him. The one the government had trained, honed, and aimed at America's enemies. Now, as he drove toward his secure storage unit on the outskirts of town, he let that monster fully awaken. The facility's night manager barely glanced up as Raymond entered, used to the peculiar hours kept by certain clients. Raymond punched in his code and walked to unit number 237, unlocking 3 separate mechanisms before the door slid open, revealing not furniture or seasonal decorations, but an arsenal that would make special forces envious. Within 20 minutes, he had assembled what he needed: specialized communications equipment, weapons, tactical gear, and an anonymous laptop with custom security features. As he prepared, his phone rang, a secure line known to only 4 people in the world. "Took you long enough," Raymond answered. "I just heard," came the gruff voice of Harvey Donovan, Raymond's former handler at the agency. "How bad?" "They have Blake and Mia. Natalie's been working with Kozlov and Dvoruk." "Jesus Christ," Donovan muttered. "The Gorgon files." "They want the backup drive." A weighted silence followed. "You know what's on that drive, Sullivan. If it gets out, it won't." "What's your play?" Raymond loaded a custom Sig Sauer with specialized ammunition. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want." "That's suicide." "No," Raymond corrected. "It's bait." After ending the call, Raymond drove to an abandoned automotive garage he purchased through a shell company years earlier. Inside, he powered up systems that had lain dormant, but ready. Raymond watched as FBI agents continued processing the scene, then switched to footage from earlier that day. There, 3 men entering through the back while the FBI was distracted at the front. One of them carried his unconscious son while another swept the house with practiced efficiency. Raymond froze the frame on the leader's face, ran it through facial recognition, and got a match. Viktor Orlovsky, former Spetsnaz, now a contractor for anyone with deep enough pockets. His tactical phone buzzed with a message from Donovan. Package delivered. Within minutes, a young woman in a delivery uniform approached the garage's side door. Raymond let her in, accepted a sealed case, verified her credentials, and sent her on her way. Inside the case was a replica of the drive they wanted, identical in every way, except the files contained subtle tracking software and corrupted data designed to trigger alarms when accessed. While preparing his equipment, Raymond reviewed what he knew. Kozlov had recruited Natalie, using their affair to manipulate her into accessing Raymond's secure files. Devereaux provided the financial backing and international connections, but someone else was pulling the strings, someone who knew about the Gorgon Protocol and its significance. On a secure tablet, Raymond pulled up the dossiers he compiled over the past 3 months, studying the connections. There was another player, the one who'd orchestrated Kozlov's mysterious release from a supposedly inescapable black site. His phone pinged with a notification from one of his monitoring programs. Someone was trying to access Natalie's cloud storage, not the FBI, but a remote connection bouncing through servers in Estonia, Singapore, and finally Egypt. Raymond smiled coldly. They're getting sloppy in their desperation to find a drive. He sent a simple text to Donovan. Confirm protocol Chimera. The response came seconds later. Confirmed. Assets in position. Raymond checked his watch. 6 hours until the midnight exchange. Enough time to set his trap. He pulled up blueprints of the abandoned foundry, identifying entry points, blind spots, and fallback positions. Then he accessed a satellite feed showing thermal signatures around the building. 8 heat signatures moving with the precision of trained operatives. His children would be kept separate from the main group, most likely in the old administrative offices with the reinforced walls. He mapped out 3 potential extraction routes. As he worked, a notification appeared. Facial recognition had identified another figure from the home invasion footage, Sofia Vega, known in certain circles as Viper, the woman Blake had seen in Natalie's files. Raymond paused, his mind racing. Viper's presence changed things. She wasn't just a hired gun. She was meticulous, loyal only to the highest bidder. If she was involved, The operation was bigger than he'd initially thought. He pulled up her known associates, looking for connections to Kozlov or Devereux, and found something unexpected. A surveillance photo from 3 years ago showing Viper with a familiar face. Director Westfield, Raymond's former boss at the agency. The pieces started falling into place. Not a foreign intelligence operation, but something domestic, something that reached into the highest levels of his former employer. Raymond reached for a secure phone and dialed a number he'd memorized but never used. Authorization code, answered a clipped voice. Monarch Winter Sierra 9-4, Raymond replied. A pause. Authentication confirmed. What do you need? Winter protocol. Full package. Targets. Raymond looked at the faces on his screen. Kozlov, Devereux, Orlovsky, Viper, and his jaw tightened. Natally. I'll designate when I arrive. Priority extraction for 2 minors. Understood. Assets will be in position. Dark protocol. Raymond ended the call and continued his preparations. On a nearby table lay a final contingency, a small injector containing a neurotoxin undetectable in standard autopsies. It had been part of his emergency kit for years, a last resort if he was ever captured. Now it might serve another purpose. As he loaded his gear into a nondescript van, Raymond allowed himself one moment of raw emotion. The image of his children bound and frightened. Then he locked it away, replacing it with cold, methodical purpose. Tonight, Raymond Sullivan wouldn't be negotiating for his children's return. He'd be dispensing judgment. Midnight approached as Raymond parked 3 blocks from the abandoned foundry. Its skeleton of rusted metal silhouetted against the night sky. He activated his comms unit. All units, radio check, he said quietly. Alpha in position, came Donovan's voice. We have eyes on the north entrance. Bravo covering east approach. Charlie team on standby. 2 minutes out. Raymond hadn't told the FBI about his backup plan. Former colleagues who operated in the shadows between official operations. Men and women who owed him their lives and asked no questions. He checked his watch. 11:42 p.m. time to move. The foundry complex spanned nearly 2 acres, its main building a cathedral of industrial decay. Raymond approached using the blind spots he'd identified. Thermal imaging showed him where the hostiles were positioned. Inside, he detected 12 heat signatures, 2 smaller ones in the administrative section, Blake and Mia, and 10 others distributed strategically throughout the building. More than he'd anticipated. Someone was expecting trouble. Raymond tapped his comms twice, signaling his team to hold their positions until his mark. Then he walked openly toward the main entrance, the decoy drive, and a protective case handcuffed to his wrist. 2 armed men emerged from the shadows, frisking him roughly before escorting him inside. The vast interior was dimly lit by portable flood lamps, creating islands of harsh light surrounded by impenetrable darkness. In the center stood Viktor Orlovsky, tall and scarred, flanked by 4 operatives with military bearing. Behind them, partially obscured in shadows, stood a figure Raymond recognized immediately, Director Thomas Westfield. Sullivan, Westfield acknowledged, stepping forward. I was hoping we could resolve this without involving your family. Raymond's expression revealed nothing. Where are my children? Westfield gestured, and a side door opened. Blake and Mia were led out, hands bound before them, eyes wide with fear and confusion. When they saw their father, Mia choked back a sob while Blake's face hardened into a mask reminiscent of Raymond's own. Dad, Blake called, his voice steadier than Raymond had expected. They said Mom's been arrested. Don't worry about that now, Raymond replied evenly. His eyes conveyed a message only his son would understand. Be ready. Westfield stepped closer. The drive, Sullivan, then your children go free. First, tell me why, Raymond demanded. Why betray everything we stood for? Why involve my family? The older man's face tightened. You think this is about money or power. It's about survival. The Gorgon Protocol wasn't just an intelligence operation. It was insurance. Insurance against people who would burn this country to the ground from the inside. So you partnered with Kozlov, a man who sold out our agents. Necessary compromise, Westfield dismissed. The world isn't black and white anymore, Sullivan. Sometimes we need monsters to fight monsters. Raymond's laugh was cold. And what does that make you? A pragmatist, Westfield replied. The drive, Sullivan. Now. Raymond slowly raised the case. First, my children walk out of here. Westfield nodded to Orlovsky, who barked an order in Russian. Two men cut the bindings on Blake and Mia's wrists and pushed them forward. As they approached, Raymond whispered, "Cars 3 blocks south. On my signal, run. Don't look back." Blake gave an almost imperceptible nod. Raymond unlocked the handcuff, holding the case out to Westfield. As the older man reached for it, Raymond's free hand pressed a hidden transmitter in his pocket. Instantly, the flood lamps went out, plunging the foundry into darkness. The crack of suppressed gunfire erupted from multiple positions as Raymond's team executed their assigned targets with surgical precision. "Now," Raymond shouted, pushing his children toward the exit while drawing his weapon in one fluid motion. Through his night vision goggles, he tracked Westfield fleeing toward a side exit, followed by Orlovsky. Two of Orlovsky's men moved to intercept Raymond, but fell before they could fire, taken down by Donovan's sniper team. "Alpha Team, secure the children," Raymond ordered into his comms. "Bravo, east exit. Priority target escaping." As Blake and Mia disappeared into the night, Raymond pursued Westfield, weaving through the machinery graveyard. Ahead, he heard the metallic clang of the emergency exit slamming open. Outside, Raymond caught a glimpse of two figures racing toward a waiting SUV. He took aim at Orlovsky, squeezing the trigger twice. The Russian stumbled, then collapsed. Westfield reached the vehicle, yanking the door open, only to freeze as the interior light revealed Sofia Vega, sitting calmly in the driver's seat, a sleek pistol aimed at his chest. "Hello, Thomas," she said, her voice carrying in the night air. "Change of plans." Raymond approached cautiously, weapon trained on both of them. "Viper," he acknowledged. "I thought you were working for him." She smiled, keeping her gun steady. "I was. Until I received a better offer." Westfield's face contorted with rage. "You backstabbing." "Shut up," Vega interrupted. "You've lost, Thomas. Sullivan knows everything about the offshore accounts, the blackmail operation, even your little arrangement with Kozlov." Raymond circled to the passenger side, never lowering his weapon. "Where's Natalie?" he demanded. "Your wife managed to escape federal custody an hour ago," Vega replied. "Apparently, she had help from inside. She's meeting Deveroufs at a private airstrip north of here." She checked her watch. "In about 30 minutes. Westfield lunged suddenly, reaching for something in his jacket. Raymond fired without hesitation, the bullet striking him in the shoulder. The older man collapsed against the vehicle, cursing. "That was stupid," Raymond said coldly, kicking away the small pistol Westfield had attempted to draw. His comms crackled. "Primary targets neutralized," Donovan reported. "Children secure, en route to Safe House Alpha." Raymond nodded, though Donovan couldn't see him. "Understood. I'm wrapping up here." He turned back to Vega. "Why help me?" She shrugged elegantly. "Let's just say I have a vested interest in the Gorgon Protocol remaining buried, and you're more likely to ensure that than he is." She nodded toward the wounded Westfield. Raymond considered this. "What about Natalie and Deveroux?" "That's your call," Vega replied. "But you might want to hurry. Their plane leaves in 40 minutes. Raymond secured Westfield with zip ties, then addressed Vega. "He stays alive until I verify my children are safe." She nodded, then held out her hand. "The real drive, Sullivan. I know that one's a decoy." Raymond's expression hardened. "What makes you think I brought the real one?" "Because you're a father who wants his children back. And you always have a contingency plan." After a moment's hesitation, Raymond reached into his boot and extracted a small, heavily encrypted drive. "This doesn't leave my possession," he stated. Vega smiled. "I don't need the drive. I just need to verify the data." As she connected a specialized reader to the drive, Raymond studied her. "You're working for someone else. Someone who wants to make sure certain information never comes to light." She didn't deny it. "We all have masters, Sullivan. Even you." The reader beeped, confirming the drive's contents. Vega nodded, satisfied. "Our business is concluded," she said, handing the drive back. "The team at the airstrip will stand down. Natalie and Devereaux are yours to deal with as you see fit." Raymond took the drive, his mind already calculating his next move. "And Westfield?" Vega's smile turned predatory. "Oh, I have special instructions for the former director." As she trained her weapon on the wounded man, Raymond turned to leave, then paused. Why did Natalie do it? Was it just the money? Vega considered him, her expression softening slightly. "She told Devereaux it started as revenge, something about you always being distant, keeping secrets." She shrugged. "Then it became about the power, the thrill. Some people aren't built for normal lives, Sullivan. You should understand that better than most." Raymond absorbed this, his face revealing nothing. Then, without another word, he headed toward his vehicle, already plotting the final act of his vengeance. Behind him, Westfield began pleading with Vega, his words fading into the night. The private airstrip glowed with minimal runway lighting as Raymond approached on foot, having abandoned his vehicle a quarter-mile back. Through his tactical binoculars, he observed the sleek Gulfstream being prepped for departure, ground crew loading luggage while the pilot completed his pre-flight checks. At the edge of the tarmac stood a black Range Rover, its occupants visible through the windows. Natalie in the passenger seat, her face tense as she spoke with Philip Devereaux behind the wheel. They were early. The flight wasn't scheduled for another 20 minutes. Raymond circled to approach from downwind, using the hangars as cover. He disabled the perimeter sensors and cameras, ensuring no electronic evidence of his presence would remain. As he moved silently toward the Range Rover, he thumbed the secure phone in his pocket, confirming a message from Donovan. "Children secured at Alpha location. All clear." With that knowledge, the last restraint fell away. His family was safe. What happened next would be pure judgment. He reached the rear of the Range Rover undetected, listening to the conversation inside. "He'll find us," Natalie was saying, her voice tight with anxiety. "You don't know Raymond like I do. He won't stop." Devereaux's laugh held false confidence. "Your husband is occupied with your children and the FBI. By the time he sorts through that mess, we'll be in Monaco with new identities." "You don't understand," Natalie insisted. "Raymond isn't like normal people. The rear door opened silently as Raymond slid into the back seat, pressing a specialized stun device against Devereaux's neck before either of them realized he was there. "She's right," Raymond said calmly as Devereaux convulsed and slumped against the steering wheel. "I'm not like normal people." Natalie's scream died in her throat as she turned to face her husband, his expression more terrifying for its complete absence of emotion. "Raymond," she whispered, "the children are safe." He finished. "No thanks to you." Her eyes darted to the unconscious Devereaux, then back to Raymond. "I can explain everything. They threatened me, threatened our family." "Stop lying." Raymond cut her off. "I have all your communications, Natalie. Every meeting, every transfer, every plan. I know you approached Devereaux first, not the other way around." Color drained from her face. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to document everything. Long enough to watch you sell out our family, our country." His voice remained unnervingly calm. "Long enough to plan exactly how this would end." Tears welled in her eyes. Whether genuine or calculated, Raymond couldn't tell anymore. "What are you going to do?" Raymond withdrew a small metallic case from his jacket. "I'm going to give you a choice." He opened the case, revealing 2 vials. "This one," he indicated the left vial. contains enough evidence to convict you of espionage, treason, conspiracy to kidnap, and attempted murder. You'll spend the rest of your life in a supermax facility with no possibility of parole. Blake and Mia will know exactly what you did and why you're never coming home. Natalie swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the vials. And the other one. A solution that will trigger a massive cardiac event. Painless, undetectable. You'll be found with your lover, both victims of stress-induced heart failure while preparing to flee the country. Your children will remember you as someone who made a terrible mistake, not a traitor. They'll mourn you, eventually forgive you, and move on. Her eyes widened in disbelief. You're offering to kill me. I'm offering you mercy, Raymond clarified. More than you offered our children when you put them in danger. You're insane, she whispered. No, I'm exactly what I've always been. You just chose not to see it. He set the case on the console between them. You have 3 minutes to decide. Natalie stared at him, searching for any hint of bluff or manipulation. Finding none, she began to sob quietly. What about Philip? She asked, glancing at Devereaux. His fate isn't your concern. Raymond checked his watch. 2 minutes. The children need a mother. They needed one who wouldn't betray them. His eyes were glacial. 1 minute. Natalie's breathing steadied as resignation settled over her features. I never meant for the children to be involved. That was Westfield's doing, not mine. Your choices made it possible. 30 seconds. She reached for the case with trembling fingers, hovering over the vials. I did love you once, Raymond, before I knew what you really were. Time's up, he said, closing the case before she could choose. But this was never really your decision to make. Confusion crossed her face, followed by understanding as Raymond withdrew a third option from his pocket, a syringe. You made your choice months ago when you first betrayed our family. Before she could react, he injected the contents into her neck with practiced efficiency. Her eyes widened in shock, then anger, then fear as she realized what was happening. What did you? She gasped, her speech already slurring. A cocktail that mimics natural causes, Raymond explained clinically. You and your lover decided to escape justice through suicide. Tragically romantic. As the drug took effect, Natalie's expression shifted through panic into a strange calm. The children, she whispered. Tell them I'm sorry. Raymond watched her passively as her eyes fluttered close. He carefully positioned her body to appear natural, then moved to Devereaux, administering the same injection. With clinical precision, he arranged evidence that would support his narrative. Empty pill bottles, glasses with trace amounts of crushed sedatives, a suicide note in Natalie's handwriting that he had prepared months ago using samples of her script. Afterward, Raymond wiped down any surfaces he might have touched, then exited the vehicle as silently as he'd entered. At a safe distance, he placed an anonymous call to local law enforcement, reporting suspicious activity at the airstrip. As he walked away into the darkness, Raymond's thoughts turned to his children. They would need time to heal, to understand that their mother's betrayal wasn't their fault. He would be there for them, solid and unwavering, as he'd always been. His phone vibrated with a message from Donovan. Westfield situation handled. Clean slate activated. Assets standing down. The Gorgon Protocol and its secrets would remain buried. The conspiracy had been dismantled, and Raymond Sullivan had reminded the shadows of the intelligence world why he had been both respected and feared. Some would call what he'd done monstrous. But Raymond knew the truth. Sometimes protecting what you love required becoming the very thing others feared. He felt no remorse as he disappeared into the night. Only the cold certainty that justice, his justice, had been served. 3 weeks after what the press had dubbed the airstrip tragedy, Raymond sat in his attorney's office, reviewing the final documents that would transfer Natalie's assets to a trust for Blake and Mia. The official investigation had concluded quickly. Philip Devereaux and Natalie Sullivan had committed suicide rather than face federal charges for espionage. What didn't make the papers was the broader cleanup operation. Adrian Kozlov had died of complications while in federal custody. Director Westfield's body had been discovered in his weekend cabin, an apparent suicide following rumors of corruption. Various associates connected to the conspiracy had either disappeared or met with unfortunate accidents. "Everything appears to be in order, Mr. Sullivan," said Eleanor Prescott, his attorney of 15 years and one of the few people who suspected, but never asked about, the darker aspects of his work. The truth behind her client's carefully constructed life. "Once you sign these, the trust will be established with you as sole trustee until Blake turns 25. Raymond signed without hesitation. "And the other matter." Eleanor handed him another folder. "The sale of your security consulting firm is complete. $70 million transferred to the accounts you specified. Your recommendation for Maxwell Quinn as your replacement has been accepted by the board." Raymond nodded. Max was former agency, trustworthy, and most importantly, had no connection to the Gorgon Protocol. "What about the house?" he asked. "Listed as you requested. Given the market and the property's history, we should expect offers below asking price." Raymond didn't care about the money. The house held too many shadows now. As he left Eleanor's office, Raymond checked his secure phone. A message from one of his surveillance programs showed a familiar face entering the country through a private airfield in Maine. Sofia Vega. Not unexpected, but worth monitoring. He drove to the rented lake house where he and his children had been staying since that night. It was peaceful, isolated, with excellent sight lines and multiple escape routes. Practical considerations that had become second nature over decades. Inside, he found Mia on the dock, sketching the landscape with the focused intensity she'd inherited from him. At 14, she seemed both younger and older since losing her mother, more vulnerable in her quiet moments, more determined in her actions. Blake sat at the kitchen table, laptop open to college applications. At 17, he'd become more serious, more watchful. He'd stopped asking about what really happened that night, but Raymond knew the questions remained. "Dad," Blake acknowledged as Raymond set his briefcase down. "Everything go okay with the lawyer?" "All taken care of," Raymond confirmed. "How's the Stanford application coming?" "Almost done." Blake hesitated. "I've been thinking about Georgetown too. They have a good international relations program." Raymond noted the implication. Georgetown meant intelligence community pathways. The beginning of a career following in his footsteps. The thought both concerned and somewhat pleased him. "Your path is your choice," Raymond said carefully. "But don't choose it because of what happened." Blake's eyes, so much like his own, met Raymond's directly. "Is that why you chose it? Because of what happened to your family?" The question caught Raymond off guard. He'd never told his children about his own past, how his parents' deaths in what was officially ruled an accident had led him toward a life in intelligence, seeking answers that eventually revealed a similar conspiracy. "Partly," he admitted, deciding his son deserved some truth. "But that was different." "Was it?" Blake challenged. "Mom betrayed us, made choices that put us in danger. Isn't that what happened to you?" Raymond studied his son, recognizing the sharp intelligence that had always made Blake different from his peers. "Who told you about my parents?" "No one." Blake shrugged. "I started digging after everything happened. Found newspaper articles about their deaths. Connected some dots." "And what else did you find?" Raymond asked, keeping his voice neutral. "Nothing concrete, just patterns. People from your past who died mysteriously. Operations that disappeared from public record around the times you were deployed." Blake's expression was unnervingly calm. "I know you didn't just consult, Dad. I know what you really did for the government." Before Raymond could respond, Mia entered from the dock, her sketchbook tucked under her arm. She looked between them, sensing the tension. "Everything okay?" "Fine, sweetheart," Raymond assured her. "How's the drawing coming?" "Good." She hesitated. "I was thinking maybe we could visit Mom's grave this weekend. I know it's not really. I mean, there's no body since they had to cremate her for the toxicology tests." But still, Raymond kept his expression gentle. "If that's what you want." "Blake doesn't want to go," she added, glancing at her brother. "Because it's a lie," Blake said quietly. "That empty grave, the suicide story, all of it." Mia's face crumpled slightly. "Don't start this again. The police said." "The police said what Dad wanted them to say," Blake interrupted, his eyes never leaving Raymond's. "Isn't that right?" The room fell silent. Raymond could feel the moment balancing on a knife's edge. His relationship with his children, their future, the truth about their mother, all hanging in the balance of how he answered. "Blake," he said carefully, "whatever you think you know." "I don't think, Dad. I know." Blake's voice was steady. "I know Mom was involved in something dangerous. I know she betrayed you, betrayed us, and I know you did what you had to do to protect us." Mia looked between them, confused. "What are you talking about?" Raymond made his decision. "Mia, why don't you go finish your sketch? The light will be gone soon. Blake and I need to talk." After she reluctantly left, Raymond sat across from his son. "How long have you known?" "Since that night," Blake admitted. "I saw the look in your eyes when we were in the car. You weren't surprised. You were prepared, like you'd been expecting something like this." Raymond nodded slowly. "What exactly do you think happened?" "I think Mom got involved with dangerous people. I think she helped them try to get something from you, something valuable enough to kidnap us for. And I think," Blake swallowed, "I think you made sure she could never hurt us again." Raymond studied his son, seeing not judgment, but understanding. It was disconcerting. "Would it change how you see me, if that were true?" he asked. Blake considered this. "You've always taught us that actions have consequences, that protecting family comes first." He met his father's gaze. "I don't need to know the details. I just needed to know I wasn't wrong about who you are." Raymond felt something shift between them, a new understanding, more honest than what had existed before. "And who am I?" "Blake." "Someone who keeps his promises," Blake said simply. "Who protects what's his, no matter what it costs." Raymond nodded, recognizing both approval and warning in his son's words. Blake understood what Raymond had done and why, but also recognized the darkness such actions required. "Some burdens aren't meant to be shared," Raymond said finally. "Some knowledge can't be unlearned. Remember that before you decide on Georgetown." Outside, the sun began to set over the lake, casting long shadows across the water where Mia continued her drawing, still innocent of the fuller truth. Raymond made a silent promise that she would stay that way as long as possible. Some lies were necessary, some truths were too heavy to bear, and some reckonings would remain forever in darkness. 4 months later, Raymond stood in the empty living room of their former home, now sold to a young tech executive and his family. The furniture was gone, the walls repainted in neutral tones that erased any trace of the Sullivan family's 19 years there. Better this way, Raymond thought. Clean breaks were always preferable to lingering attachments. His phone vibrated. "Donovan." "It's done," the gruff voice announced when Raymond answered. "Last of the overseas accounts liquidated and transferred as requested. Clean break." "Any complications?" Raymond asked, pacing the empty space where his family had once gathered for movie nights and holiday celebrations. Vega's been asking questions, subtle, but persistent. She's looking for something. Raymond had expected this. Sofia Vega had helped him for her own reasons, and those reasons would eventually lead her back to him. Let her look. The trail ends with Westfield. You sure about that? No, Raymond admitted, but it buys time. He ended the call and moved to what had been his home office, where the false bottom in the desk had once hidden the drive that started everything. The new owners had already installed sleek modern furniture, erasing the last physical traces of his presence. His phone buzzed again, Blake asking when he'd be home. The new home, a sprawling ranch property 30 miles outside the city, with reinforced security and escape tunnels, was something Raymond had installed before they moved in. Paranoia or prudence, depending on one's perspective. "On my way," he texted back. As Raymond walked toward the front door, movement on the street caught his attention. A dark sedan, windows tinted, engine idling. Not unusual in this upscale neighborhood, but Raymond's instincts, honed through decades of operations, registered the threat. He continued to his car as if he hadn't noticed, using its windows to observe the sedan as he opened his door. The passenger window of the sedan lowered slightly, revealing a familiar feminine profile. Sofia Vega. Raymond adjusted his plan immediately, driving not toward home, but to a predetermined location for situations exactly like this, a public park with multiple exit routes and enough open space to prevent ambushes. The sedan followed at a careful distance, not trying to hide its presence then, a message rather than an attack. At the park, Raymond parked and walked to a chess table position to give him clear sight lines in all directions. He didn't wait long before Vega appeared, moving with the casual grace that had made her such an effective operative. "Sullivan," she greeted, sitting across from him. "Nice place for a conversation." "What do you want, Vega?" Raymond asked, his tone businesslike. She smiled slightly. "Direct as always. I came to deliver a warning." "I'm listening." "The people I work for are satisfied with how the Gorgon situation was resolved. Westfield's death closed many potentially embarrassing avenues of inquiry." Raymond waited for the other shoe to drop. Vega didn't make social calls. "However," she continued, "there's been interest in the methods you employed, specifically with your wife." Raymond's expression remained neutral. "The investigation ruled suicide. We both know better." Vega leaned forward slightly. "The compound you used, it's distinctive to those who know what to look for. My employers recognize the signature. And they're concerned about where you acquired it. That formulation was supposed to be destroyed after the Belgrade operation." Raymond had wondered if this would come back to him. The compound had been developed for high-value eliminations that needed to appear natural. He'd kept a sample against protocol, one of many insurance policies he'd accumulated over the years. "What exactly is the warning, Vega?" She reached into her jacket, causing Raymond to tense, but withdrew only a small flash drive. "This contains files on 3 individuals who have made inquiries about you and your children in the past month. Former associates of Westfield, who believe you have the original Gorgon files." Raymond didn't reach for the drive. "And your employers are sharing this out of the goodness of their hearts." Vega's smile was razor sharp. "They believe your skills are still valuable. This is both warning and job offer. I'm retired. No one with our background ever truly retires, Sullivan. You know that." She placed the drive on the table between them. 3 operations, your choice of methods, generous compensation. Afterward, you and your children receive new identities, relocation, and permanent protection. Raymond studied her. "And if I decline?" "Then you handle those 3 individuals on your own, along with whoever replaces them." Her expression softened fractionally. "You have children to protect, Sullivan. My employers can offer securities you can't provide alone, no matter how good you are." Raymond considered the offer, weighing options and risks. "Who exactly are your employers?" "You know I can't tell you that." "Can't or won't." Vega's silence was answer enough. Raymond finally took the drive. "I'll consider it. Don't take too long. The first name on that list is already in the country." She stood to leave, then paused. "Your son, Blake, isn't it? He's applied to Georgetown." Interesting choice. The implied threat wasn't subtle. Raymond's face hardened. "That's off limits, Vega. I'm simply making an observation. Children often follow in their parents' footsteps." She held his gaze. "Sometimes they even finish what their parents started." After she left, Raymond remained at the chess table, turning the drive over in his fingers. He'd known this day would come, that the life he tried to leave behind would eventually find him again. The shadows never truly released those who had served them well. His phone rang, Mia this time, wondering if he'd be home for dinner. He assured her he would, his decision crystallizing as he spoke with his daughter. Raymond had spent his career in moral twilight, justifying questionable actions in the name of national security. He told himself the personal cost was worth the greater good. But watching his children struggle with their mother's betrayal and death had forced him to confront truths he'd long avoided. There was always another mission, another threat, another compromise. The game never ended. It merely changed players. Pocketing the drive, Raymond headed to his car. He had preparations to make, contingencies to activate. The three individuals Vega had identified would need to be dealt with, but not in the way she or her employers expected. Raymond Sullivan had spent decades playing by others' rules, but protecting his family, that was a mission with his rules, his methods. As he drove home, a plan began forming in his mind, not just to eliminate the immediate threats, but to ensure no one, not Vega, not her mysterious employers, not ghosts from his past, would ever threaten his children again. The final reckoning was approaching. And this time, Raymond would ensure it was truly final. 2 days later, Raymond sat in his home office. 3 dossiers lay open before him. Vega's information had been accurate. 3 former intelligence operatives with connections to Westfield, each with the skills and motivation to pursue the Gorgon files. Benjamin Mercer, former CIA tactical specialist, discharged after an operation in Yemen went sideways. Now a private contractor with ties to several foreign intelligence services. Diana Kwan, cybersecurity expert who had worked directly under Westfield for 6 years, officially resigned, but Raymond recognized the pattern. She'd been placed in deep cover. Alexander Morris, field operative turned internal affairs investigator. The most dangerous of the 3, he knew too much about Raymond's past operations. Raymond had spent the night mapping their movements, identifying patterns and vulnerabilities. Donovan was approaching from the east, staying low and using the cover of the trees. Raymond watched as his former handler moved into position, weapon at the ready. He gave the signal, and Donovan nodded, understanding the plan. Raymond exited the observation room, moving silently through the house. He positioned himself at the front door, weapon ready but concealed. The doorbell rang, a sharp, insistent sound. "Come in," Raymond called out, his voice steady. The doors unlocked. The door creaked open, and Alexander Morris stepped inside, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. Raymond kept his weapon trained on Morris, but didn't raise it. "You're taking a big risk, coming here." Morris shrugged, his eyes darting around the room. "So are you. But here we are." "Let's get one thing straight," Raymond said, his voice cold. "I don't trust you, and I don't owe you anything, but I'm willing to listen." Morris nodded, his expression serious. "Fair enough. I need your help, Sullivan. Westfield's network is closing in, and they think I have the Gorgon files. I don't, but they won't believe that until they see proof. I need something to keep them at bay." "And in return?" Raymond asked, his eyes narrowing. "I give you the names of everyone in Westfield's network who knows about your family. I give you the chance to cut off the threat before it gets any closer to your kids." Raymond studied Morris, weighing his words. "And why should I believe you?" Morris met his gaze steadily. "Because I'm the only one who knows the full extent of Westfield's operations. Because I'm the only one who can help you protect your family. And because, despite everything, I still believe in the mission, in protecting this country, no matter the cost." Raymond considered this, his mind racing. Morris was a wild card, but he was also a potential asset. And if there was even a chance he could help keep his family safe, Raymond was willing to take that risk. "All right," Raymond said finally. "But know this, if you're lying, if you're setting me up, I will end you. No hesitation, no mercy." Morris nodded, a grim smile on his face. "I wouldn't expect anything less, but I'm not lying, Sullivan. I'm telling the truth, and I need your help." Raymond lowered his weapon slightly, but kept it ready. "Tell me what you know. And don't leave anything out. Morris's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Raymond took a step back, keeping his weapon ready but no longer aimed at Morris. I mean, I can give you something more valuable than the Gorgon files. Something that will ensure your freedom and keep you off the radar for good. Morris's expression turned skeptical. And what's that? A new identity, a fresh start. Somewhere far from here, where no one will ever find you. I have the resources, the connections. I can make it happen. Morris considered this, his eyes searching Raymond's face for any sign of deception. And why would you do that for me? Because I need to know that the threat to my family is truly neutralized. Because I need to know that you're not just going to disappear and then reappear later, when I least expect it. And because, despite everything, I understand the burden of living in the shadows. Morris was silent for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but I need proof. I need to know that you're serious. Raymond reached into his pocket and pulled out a small encrypted device. This contains the details of your new identity. A new name, a new background, a new life. All you have to do is take it and disappear. Morris took the device, his fingers brushing against Raymond's as he did. And what about the dead man switch? I'll need to keep that active for a while, just to be sure. But once I'm certain that the threat is truly neutralized, I'll deactivate it. You'll be free. Morris nodded, a look of relief passing over his face. All right. It's a deal. Raymond extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Morris took it. Welcome to your new life, Alexander. As they shook hands, Raymond couldn't help but feel a sense of finality. This was the end of a chapter, the closing of a door. But it was also the beginning of something new, a chance for Morris to start over, to leave the shadows behind. But as Morris turned to leave, Raymond called out to him, "One more thing. If I ever see you again, if I ever hear your name, I won't hesitate. Do you understand?" Morris looked back at him, a grim smile on his face. Loud and clear, Sullivan. Loud and clear. As Morris disappeared into the night, Raymond stood alone in the darkness, his mind racing. He had made a deal with the devil, but it was a necessary one. For the sake of his family, for the sake of his own peace of mind, he had to ensure that the threat was truly neutralized. And he had to do it in a way that left no loose ends, no room for error. With a final glance around the property, Raymond made his way back to the house, his mind already turning to the next steps. The names Morris had given him, the connections he had revealed, it was all part of a larger web, a tangled mess of deceit and betrayal that went deeper than he had ever imagined. But he was determined to unravel it, to cut off the threat at its source, and to ensure that his family was safe, once and for all. Raymond waited, his expression unreadable. He knew Vega well enough to understand that she was weighing her options, calculating the risks and benefits of her next move. "You're playing a dangerous game, Sullivan," she finally said, her voice laced with a mix of admiration and warning. "You know I can't let this go unanswered." "I'm not asking you to let it go, Vega," Raymond replied, his voice steady. "I'm telling you that it's done. The threat to my family is neutralized. The people who were hunting them are either eliminated or contained, and I have the evidence to ensure that they stay that way." Another pause, longer this time. Raymond could almost hear the gears turning in Vega's mind as she processed the information. "And what about me, Sullivan?" she asked, her voice softer. "Where do I fit into all of this?" "You're a wild card, Vega," Raymond admitted. "But you're also someone I've worked with before, someone I can trust, to a point. I'm giving you a choice. Stand down, and we can find a way to coexist. Continue to pursue this, and you'll find yourself on the wrong side of a very dangerous man." Vega's laugh was low and dangerous. "You always did know how to make an offer I can't refuse, Sullivan. But remember this. If you ever cross me again, if you ever put me in a position where I have to choose between you and my employers, I won't hesitate. I'll take you down, just like I would anyone else. I wouldn't expect anything less, Vega, Raymond replied, a hint of respect in his voice. But for now, let's call it a truce. Let's both walk away from this and focus on our own priorities. A final pause. Then Vega spoke. Agreed. But don't think this is over, Sullivan. Not by a long shot. I'll be watching you. And if you so much as sneeze in the wrong direction, I'll know about it. Duly noted, Raymond replied, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. But for now, let's both take a step back and reassess. We've both been through enough. It's time to focus on the future, not the past. With that, the call ended, and Raymond let out a long breath. He had played a dangerous game, but it was one he had to play. For the sake of his family, for the sake of his own peace of mind, he had to ensure that the threat was truly neutralized. And he had to do it in a way that left no loose ends, no room for error. As he sat there, the weight of the past few months pressing down on him, Raymond couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. It was over. The threat to his family was contained. The people who had sought to harm them were either eliminated or neutralized, and he had the evidence to ensure that they stayed that way. But he also knew that this was just the beginning, that there would always be more threats, more dangers, more challenges to face, and he was ready to protect his family, ready to face whatever came next, ready to do whatever it took to keep them safe. You know they won't stop. They will, Raymond countered, because in 1 hour, copies of everything I have, the Gorgon files, Westfield's confession, communication logs between Davis and Fleming about eliminating loose ends, will be delivered to 7 different insurance locations unless I enter a cancellation code. Another pause, longer this time. What do you want? A permanent end to this. My family off all target lists. Official confirmation. I can't promise that without. You can, Raymond interrupted, because you've been playing your own game all along. You have the authority. You just needed leverage against Davis and Fleming. The silence that followed confirmed his assessment. You have 1 hour, Raymond concluded, ending the call. He checked the time. 4:37 p.m. Mia would be expecting dinner soon. Blake would be calling to report on his college visit. Life continuing. Normal and precious. While Raymond had once again navigated the shadows to protect it. His secure email pinged with an incoming message from an anonymous address. It contained a single line. Confirmation code accepted. Reckoning acknowledged. File closed. Raymond deleted the message, then initiated a complete wipe of his secure systems. The evidence, the backups, the insurance files, all of it erased according to protocols he'd established years ago. Some would call it paranoia. Raymond called it survival. As he closed his laptop, Raymond thought about Blake's words from months earlier. Someone who keeps his promises, who protects what's his, no matter what it costs. The cost had been high. His humanity chipped away with each calculation, each judgment, each life taken or spared based on cold arithmetic rather than mercy. But looking at the photo on his desk, Blake and Mia laughing during a rare carefree moment, Raymond knew he would pay it again without hesitation. He had been molded into a weapon by forces beyond his control. But how he wielded that weapon, that had always been his choice, and he had chosen his children, every time. As darkness fell outside, Raymond Sullivan, operative, judge, father, went to prepare dinner for his daughter, leaving the shadows behind. For now.